Cirrus stood at the edge of the training field, her eyes fixed on the group of humans standing in front of her. They were small compared to her people, and their armor looked flimsy, yet the humans had come with peaceful intentions, offering a gift to her tribe. She could feel the skepticism in the air. Her people had never trusted humans. They were seen as weak and unworthy of the respect given to other species. But today, the humans had arrived, not with weapons, but with a message, peace. Cirrus was different from most of her tribe. While others viewed the humans with disdain, she saw them as a mystery. She had heard stories of their kind, stories of bravery, determination, and survival. Yet, those stories were often exaggerated, told by those who had never truly faced a human in combat. Cirrus wasn't sure what to believe. Standing tall, she gripped her spear with firm hands, her muscles tense, ready for whatever challenge lay ahead. Her battle-worn armor gleamed in the midday sun, marking her as one of the strongest of her tribe. If these humans were truly warriors, she would test them herself. The leader of the human delegation, a man named Jack, stood at the front of the group, his expression calm. Cirrus noticed the way he looked around, taking in the surroundings with a quiet confidence. He didn't seem nervous at all, despite the fact that he and his people were surrounded by warriors, all armed with weapons far more dangerous than anything he carried. "We come in peace," Jack said, his voice steady and clear. Cirrus stepped forward, her eyes narrowing. "Do you?" she asked, her voice a low growl. "Or are you just here to waste our time?" "We are here to offer an alliance," Jack replied, "to learn from each other, to trade, and to protect one another." The words were kind, but Cirrus wasn't ready to trust them. Peace was not something easily given in her world. It was earned, and it was always through strength. "Prove it," she challenged, raising her spear high. "Show us what you are capable of. Fight me." The humans exchanged nervous glances, but Jack did not hesitate. "I accept your challenge," he said. Cirrus felt a strange thrill run through her. She had fought countless warriors in her life, but this would be different. This man, this human, was nothing like her. She could see the doubt in the eyes of his people. They didn't believe he could win. No one did doubt as the challenge was set. The air became tense. Cirrus tightened her grip on the spear, raising it high, ready to strike. She would not hold back. The humans might be small, but they had not seen what she could do. Without warning, she hurled the spear toward Jack. The tip flew through the air, sharp and deadly. Aimed straight at his chest, Jack stood still, his eyes locked on the spear. Cirrus could see the moment when his calm expression turned into focused determination. He was waiting for the right moment. Cirrus couldn't understand it. Why wasn't he running? The spear flew closer, and at the last possible moment, Jack raised his hand. He reached out, and with a smooth motion, he caught the spear in midair, gripping it firmly with his bare hands. The crowd gasped in disbelief. Cirrus was stunned. No one had ever caught her spear before, not in the air. Not like this. The human did it with ease. Without even breaking a sweat, she stood frozen for a moment, trying to process what she had just seen. This wasn't the reaction she expected. She had thrown the spear with all her strength, and yet the human had caught it, without even flinching. Jack didn't move for a moment, still holding the spear. He studied it for a brief moment before looking up at her, his expression calm. "You're strong," he said quietly. "But so am I." Cirrus felt something stir inside her. She had always believed that strength was the key to everything. Strength in combat, strength in honor, strength in her people. But now, she wasn't so sure. She had seen humans as weak, as inferior, but Jack's action had shown her something different. Was it possible that they were stronger than she had given them credit for? She stepped forward, her eyes narrowing. "That was just luck," she said, trying to mask the unease creeping into her voice. "You won't be so lucky next time." Jack smiled slightly, lowering the spear but still holding onto it. "Perhaps," he said, his voice calm. "But I'd rather trust in skill than luck." Cirrus felt a strange wave of respect for him. It was small, almost imperceptible, but it was there. She had seen many warriors, many strong fighters, but none had ever handled her spear with such ease. None had ever made her feel like her strength didn't matter as much as her mind. For the first time, she wondered if the humans had more to offer than just peace. The crowd around them was silent. Watching the exchange, Circe could feel their eyes on her. Waiting for her to react, she glanced around, noticing the disbelief on the faces of her tribe. She had never seen them so stunned before. They had always thought of the humans as weak, but now they saw that one of them was strong enough to challenge her. Circe took a deep breath and looked back at Jack. Her mind raced, and for the first time, she wasn't sure how the rest of the day would unfold. Jack smiled at her again, his confidence unwavering. "It's just the beginning," he said softly. Circe didn't respond. Instead, she turned and walked away. The weight of the spear still in her hands, she couldn't shake the feeling that this human warrior, Jack, was someone who could change everything. As she walked away, she realized something she had never thought about before. Maybe strength wasn't just about the power in your muscles. Maybe it was about something deeper, something she hadn't yet fully understood. The next day, Circe couldn't shake the image of Jack catching her spear from her mind. No matter how hard she tried, the memory of that calm, confident smile kept returning to her. She had expected to feel anger, to feel stronger than him. But instead, there was a strange sense of respect growing inside her. As the sun began to set, the humans gathered for a ceremonial feast, an offering to her people. The air was thick with the scent of food and the sounds of celebration. But Circe could barely focus on anything. Her thoughts kept drifting to Jack. "Are you going to just stand there?" A voice broke through her thoughts. Circe turned to see her friend Kayla, one of the best warriors in the tribe. Kayla's eyes gleamed with excitement. "You look like you're thinking about something or someone." Circe didn't answer immediately. Instead, she glanced across the field where Jack stood talking to his people, laughing and sharing stories. His presence felt different now, less like a threat, more like something unfamiliar. She shook her head, trying to focus. "I'm not thinking about anything," Circe said, her voice firm. But there was a slight hesitation, just wondering if they'll keep their promise. Kayla raised an eyebrow. "You don't seem like you're just wondering." She followed Circe's gaze. "You know, you don't need to keep pretending. I can see it. You're curious about him." Circe felt her heart race. "I'm not curious about him," she snapped, but the words felt hollow even to her. She wasn't sure if she was trying to convince Kayla or herself. "He's just a human." Kayla smiled knowingly. "We'll see." The night passed quickly, and before long, the humans were preparing to leave. But before they departed, Jack walked towards Circe. She watched him approach, her pulse quickening. Why did he have this effect on her? "Would you like to continue our fight?" Jack asked with a smile, his voice light and teasing. But there was an undeniable seriousness behind it. Circe raised an eyebrow. "You still want to fight me after catching my spear?" Jack chuckled, his eyes gleaming. "I think we both know that was just the beginning." Circe studied him for a moment. Was he mocking her? Or was he genuinely eager to face her again? Despite herself, she found herself agreeing. "Fine," she said. "Let's see if you can do better than catching my spear." The crowd began to gather again, whispering among themselves, watching with anticipation. They were all eager to see another display of strength. Circe felt a pang of frustration. Why did it feel so important to prove herself to them? Why did it matter that Jack had caught her spear? She stepped forward, drawing her sword from its sheath, the blade gleaming in the fading light. Jack, on the other hand, didn't pull out a weapon. He simply stood there, his hands open and relaxed at his sides. Circe couldn't help but be annoyed. "You won't fight me with a weapon?" she asked, her voice low. Jack shook his head. "I don't need one," he said calmly. "I fight with my mind, not just my body. Is that so?" Circe couldn't help but feel a little insulted. "Then let's see what your mind can do." Without waiting for him to respond, Circe lunged forward. She was fast, and she was skilled. The force of her attack was enough to knock down a lesser opponent. But Jack wasn't a lesser opponent. He moved swiftly, sidestepping her strike and using his body to block her path. It wasn't strength that stopped her, it was his ability to anticipate her moves his calm, controlled reactions. She spun around, attempting a different approach, but once again, he was there, blocking her every move without breaking a sweat. Cirrus's frustration began to build. How was he able to do this? She was stronger, faster, more experienced, yet he was able to handle everything she threw at him. Jack's calmness only made her more determined to beat him. "You're good," she admitted, stepping back to catch her breath. "But I'm better." "Maybe," Jack said, his tone still light. "But your strength is only part of the equation. You need to think beyond it." Cirrus didn't want to hear it. She wasn't used to fighting with her mind. She had always relied on her strength. But Jack was right. He wasn't stronger than her, yet he was beating her. Annoyed, she charged forward again, this time with all her might. She would end this quickly. But Jack's reaction was different this time. Instead of blocking her, he moved in close, his arm catching hers and spinning her to the ground. Cirrus landed hard on the ground, but she didn't make a sound. For a moment, she lay there, stunned by what had just happened. She had lost to a human. Jack stood over her, offering her a hand to help her up. Cirrus stared at it, her thoughts racing. She wanted to push him away, to challenge him again. But she couldn't. Something inside her told her to accept his help. After a long moment, she took his hand. He pulled her up effortlessly, his grip strong and steady. There was no smugness in his expression, no triumph. He simply looked at her with a calm respect. "That was a good fight," Jack said quietly. "You're strong, Cirrus, but sometimes it's not about strength. It's about knowing when to move and when to wait." Cirrus didn't say anything at first. She wasn't sure what to say. He had beaten her fair and square, and instead of gloating, he was teaching her. A human was teaching her. "I don't understand," she said at last. "Why did you help me up?" "I lost." Jack smiled slightly. "Because you're more than just a fighter. I see that in you." Cirrus was speechless. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. No one had ever seen her as more than just a warrior. She had always believed that strength was everything, that it defined who she was. But Jack had shown her something different. The realization hit her hard. It wasn't just respect she felt for him. There was something deeper growing inside her, something she couldn't yet name. The days following the duel were strange for Cirrus. She had never been defeated like that before, not by anyone, especially not a human. Jack's calmness, his ability to think, and his respect for her had shaken something deep inside her. She had always prided herself on her strength. But Jack had shown her that strength wasn't the only thing that mattered. She tried to ignore the thoughts that kept running through her mind. Every time she saw him, something stirred within her. She couldn't explain it. She told herself it was just the respect between warriors, but deep down, she knew it was more than that. The way Jack looked at her, the way he treated her, it was different from anyone else she had ever known. For days, Cirrus kept herself busy. She trained harder, focusing on her sword techniques and strengthening her body. But no matter how hard she worked, Jack's words echoed in her mind. Sometimes, it's not about strength. It's about knowing when to move and when to wait. Cirrus had always moved first, attacking, charging, never hesitating. But Jack had shown her something she had never considered: patience. Watching him fight, she realized that sometimes waiting and thinking were more powerful than rushing into battle. And that made her question everything she had been taught. Was strength really everything? Or was there more to being a warrior? One evening, after a long day of training, Cirrus walked toward the edge of the camp. The sky was painted in hues of purple and gold, the sun setting in the distance. She needed space to think, to clear her mind. But as she walked, she saw Jack sitting near a fire, his back to her. He was alone, looking up at the stars, lost in thought. Cirrus hesitated for a moment, wondering if she should leave him to his peace, but something in her told her to approach. She walked quietly toward him, her footsteps barely making a sound on the soft ground. When she reached him, she stood for a moment, unsure of what to say. Jack turned, sensing her presence before she even spoke. His eyes met hers, and for a brief second, there was no tension, no challenges between them. It was just a calm understanding. He smiled, a warm, genuine smile that made Cirrus's heart skip a beat. "Did you need something, Cirrus?" Jack asked, his voice low and soft, like he wasn't surprised to see her. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she sat down beside him, her legs crossed. She stared at the fire for a long time, the crackling sound filling the silence between them. The heat of the flames felt good against the cool evening air, but it didn't warm her as much as Jack's presence did. "Why do you do it?" Cirrus asked suddenly, her voice breaking the silence. "Why do you fight without anger, without fear?" Jack looked at her, his eyes thoughtful. "Because fighting with anger only leads to mistakes, and fear stops you from doing what's right. I fight because I believe in what I'm doing. I fight because I want to protect others." Cirrus was silent for a long time. His words made her think about everything she had believed in. She had always fought to prove herself, to show her strength, to protect her people. But had she ever fought for the right reasons? Had she ever fought to protect others the way Jack did? "You make it sound so simple," Cirrus said, a hint of frustration in her voice. "But it's not that easy. It's not just about protecting people. It's about winning. Proving you're the strongest." Jack chuckled softly, his smile never fading. "Winning is important." "Yes, but what do you win if you lose yourself? In the process, strength is about more than power. It's about knowing what you're fighting for." Cirrus turned to him, her eyes searching his face. "And you think that's why you're stronger than me?" Jack didn't immediately respond. He looked at her, his gaze steady. "No," he said finally, "you're just as strong as I am, Cirrus. But your strength comes from your body. My strength comes from my mind. We all have different ways of being strong." His words hit her like a punch to the chest. She had never thought about strength in that way for so long. She had measured her worth by how strong she was physically, by how well she could fight. But Jack had shown her that strength wasn't just about muscle. It was about the mind, about making choices that mattered. And somehow, that made her feel both smaller and bigger at the same time. She turned her gaze to the fire, her thoughts racing. "I don't know what to do with what you've shown me," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Everything I thought I knew feels wrong now." Jack's voice was kind, understanding. "It's not wrong, Cirrus. It's just different. Change isn't easy, but it's the only way we grow. You don't have to abandon your strength, just learn to balance it with wisdom." Cirrus wanted to argue, to tell him that she had always been the strongest, the best warrior, but she couldn't. Deep down, she knew he was right. There was more to being a warrior than simply fighting, and for the first time, she wondered if she could be something more than just the strongest fighter in her tribe. Jack's hand shifted, resting on the ground beside hers. It was a simple gesture, but to Cirrus, it felt like a promise. She wasn't sure what it was, but something about the way he looked at her made her feel like she was being seen, not just as a warrior, but as something more. "Are you afraid of what's changing inside you?" Jack asked quietly, his eyes studying her face. Cirrus hesitated, then nodded. "Yes," she confessed. "I've never known anything else. If I change, what will I be?" Jack smiled, his gaze gentle. "You'll be who you're meant to be, and I'll be right here, helping you every step of the way." Cirrus's heart skipped a beat. She had never expected to feel this way about a human, this mixture of fear, confusion, and hope. She looked into his eyes, and for the first time in her life, she didn't feel the need to prove herself. She just felt accepted. "I don't know if I'm ready," she whispered. Jack didn't respond immediately. He just reached over and took her hand in his touch warm and reassuring. And in that moment, Cirrus knew that maybe, just maybe, she was ready to change. The days following the quiet conversation by the fire were not as peaceful as Cirrus had hoped. Every time she saw Jack, she couldn't help but feel something shift inside her. It was as if the walls she had built around herself had started to crumble, bit by bit. She had always prided herself on being a warrior, strong, unyielding, and focused only on the fight. But Jack had shown her something different. his mind, his way of thinking, had made her question everything she knew about strength. And every time she saw him, those questions became louder. The tension between them was becoming harder to ignore. It wasn't just the challenge of their duel anymore, it was something deeper. There was a quiet pull between them, a connection that neither of them had expected. Circe felt it, and she could tell that Jack did, too. But they didn't speak of it. Instead, they continued to train and spar, pushing each other to be better. Circe spent more time with Jack now, often finding herself walking with him through the camp, talking about their different worlds. Jack's stories about Earth were strange to her, filled with things she had never imagined. He spoke of cities that stretched to the skies, of forests so large they seemed to go on forever, and of oceans that covered entire continents. For the first time, Circe found herself interested in something beyond her own people, beyond her own tribe. Jack had opened a window to a world she had never even considered. But it wasn't just his stories that kept her coming back, it was the way he treated her. He didn't look at her like the others did. He didn't expect her to be the strongest, the most powerful. He treated her like a person, not just a warrior. And that made Circe uneasy. She wasn't used to being seen that way. One evening, as they were walking together after a long day of training, Circe felt the weight of the silence between them. It had been growing for days now, this unspoken tension, this new understanding that neither of them could name. So, Jack began, breaking the silence. "I've been thinking." Circe turned to him, her heart beating a little faster. What about us?" Jack said, his voice quiet but steady. "About the way things are between us." Circe stopped walking, her mind racing. She hadn't expected him to bring it up. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice guarded. "I mean," Jack began, "that there's something here. Something between us, something I didn't expect." He paused for a moment, searching her face. "But I don't know if you feel it, too." Circe swallowed, her throat dry. She could feel her pulse quicken. She had felt it, this strange connection, this pull between them, but she hadn't dared to acknowledge it. Not to him, not to herself. She started, then hesitated. "I don't know what you're talking about." Jack smiled softly, as if he already knew the truth. "It's okay. I'm not asking you to admit anything right now, but I can't ignore it anymore." Circe felt her chest tighten. She didn't know what to say. She had always been so certain about everything, her strength, her role in the tribe, her place in the world. But now, with Jack, everything felt uncertain. She didn't know where she belonged anymore. "I don't think this is a good idea," Circe said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not like you. I don't belong in your world. I'm a warrior. I'm from a different place." Jack stepped closer to her, his presence comforting yet intense. "You don't have to be like me, Circe. You don't have to be from my world to understand what I'm saying." He paused, his gaze steady. "I don't care where you're from. I care about who you are, and I think you're more than just a warrior." Circe's breath caught in her throat. She had never heard anyone speak to her like this before. No one had ever looked at her and seen more than her strength, more than her title. They had always seen her as just a warrior, a fighter, someone to be respected for her power. But Jack saw her as something else, a person. "I don't know if I can be anything else," Circe admitted, her voice shaky. "I don't know how to be anything other than what I've always been." Jack's expression softened. "I know it's not easy, but you don't have to change everything overnight. You can take your time. I just want you to know that I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." Circe looked away, feeling a lump form in her throat. She had spent her whole life pushing away anyone who tried to get close to her. She had been taught to rely only on herself, to trust no one. But Jack was different. He wasn't like the others. He didn't want something from her. He just wanted her to be herself. "I don't know what to do with this," she said quietly. Her hands clenched at her sides. "This feeling," Jack smiled gently, his hand reaching out to her. He didn't touch her, but the gesture was enough. "You don't have to do anything. Just let it be." The weight of his words settled on her, and for the first time in a long time, Circe felt Something that wasn't just the rush of battle, the pressure of being the strongest. It was something softer, something gentler. She couldn't name it, but she knew it was real. "You make it sound so easy," she said, her voice trembling. "I know it's not," Jack replied. "But I'll be here for you, no matter what." The night grew dark around them, but the stars above seemed brighter than ever. Cirrus looked up at the sky, her thoughts swirling. She had never allowed herself to feel anything like this before, anything beyond her duty as a warrior. But Jack was changing that. He was showing her that there was more to life than just fighting, more to her than just strength. For the first time in a long while, Cirrus felt something she hadn't felt before. Hope. It was small, almost fragile, but it was there, and maybe, just maybe, it was enough. The days that followed the conversation by the fire felt like a storm that refused to settle. Cirrus couldn't ignore the growing feelings inside her, the connection that seemed to deepen each time. She saw Jack. She was a warrior trained to focus, to fight, and to protect. Yet, Jack had made her question everything she knew. He had shown her a different way of being, one that didn't rely on strength alone. And the more she learned from him, the more conflicted she became. She had grown up believing that power was everything, but Jack had taught her that strength was not just about muscles or weapons. It was about thinking ahead, about making the right choices, and about being there for others. Every time she spoke with him, every time their eyes met, Cirrus felt herself torn between two worlds, the world she knew, the world of her people. In this new world, Jack had introduced her to a world of understanding, compassion, and respect. One afternoon, as the sun hung low in the sky, a messenger from the tribe arrived at their camp. His face was stern, his expression tense. "Cirrus," the messenger called. "The elders wish to speak with you." Cirrus felt a knot form in her stomach. The elders rarely summoned her unless it was something serious. She exchanged a quick glance with Jack, but he said nothing. He only nodded, as if understanding the weight of the moment. "Are you coming?" Jack asked quietly. Cirrus hesitated. "I don't know what they want, whatever it is. You'll face it like a warrior," Jack said with a small smile. "I'll be here when you return." Cirrus took a deep breath and stood up, her mind racing. She had a feeling this was more than just a simple matter. It had something to do with her growing closeness to Jack, her change in behavior. She didn't know how to explain what was happening, but she knew that it was not something her people would easily accept. The path to the elders' chamber felt longer than usual. Cirrus's steps were heavy, as if the weight of her thoughts was pulling her down. When she reached the chamber, the elders were already waiting for her, their faces serious. "Cirrus," the eldest of the group began, "you've been seen spending much time with the human warrior, Jack." Cirrus stiffened, knowing where this conversation was headed. "Yes," she said, her voice steady. "He has much to teach me." The elders exchanged looks, their expressions darkening. "We have heard rumors, Cirrus," the elder continued. "Rumors of a bond forming between you and him. A bond that goes beyond training, beyond mere friendship." Cirrus felt a pang of discomfort. She had not thought of it that way. To her, Jack was a mentor, someone who had shown her a different perspective, someone who had helped her understand what true strength really was. But she knew the tribe would not see it that way. "You must stop this," the elder said, his voice cold. "You are one of us, Cirrus. Your loyalty lies with your people. The humans are nothing but strangers. If you allow this bond to grow, it will only weaken you. It will bring shame upon you and your family." Cirrus felt a surge of anger rise in her chest. How could they say such things? They didn't understand. "Jack is not like the others," she said, her voice firm. "He has shown me things that no one else has. He's not just a human. He's a warrior, a man of honor." The elders looked at each other, their disapproval clear. "You have forgotten your place," one elder muttered. "You've let your emotions cloud your judgment. If you continue this path, you will no longer be welcome here. You will have to choose, Cirrus. Your people or him?" The words hit her like a physical blow. Cirrus stood frozen, the weight of their words crushing her. She had always been loyal to her people. She had always followed the rules, always done what was expected of her. But now, everything felt different. Jack had shown her another way, a way that didn't involve rigid traditions or fighting just to prove her strength. But was it worth losing everything for? The silence stretched on, thick and uncomfortable. Cirrus's heart pounded in her chest. She wanted to say something, to defend Jack, to defend herself. But she couldn't find the words. She felt trapped, torn between her duty and her heart. Finally, she spoke, her voice quiet but strong. "I can't choose," she said. I will honor my people, but I will not turn my back on what is right. I've learned more from Jack than I ever could have imagined. And if that makes me weak in your eyes, then I accept that. But I will not let fear decide my fate." The elders were silent for a long time. Then, the eldest spoke again, his voice hard. "You have been warned, Cirrus. If you continue down this path, there will be consequences. You are no longer one of us." Cirrus's heart sank, but she held her head high. She knew that her people would never understand, but she didn't care anymore. She had changed, and no matter what happened, she wasn't going back. She turned and walked out of the chamber, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for sure. She could never go back to the way things were. When she returned to the camp, Jack was waiting for her, as he always was. His eyes met hers, and for a moment, they both understood without words. They were in this together. They didn't take it well, Jack said quietly, his voice full of understanding. Scifi shook her head, her jaw clenched. "No, they gave me an ultimatum. Choose them or choose you." Jack didn't speak for a moment, his expression thoughtful. "And what will you do?" Cirrus looked at him, her eyes clear. "I don't know what will happen next, Jack, but I know that I'm not afraid anymore. Whatever comes, I will face it, and I will face it with you." Jack smiled, his expression warm and reassuring. "Then we'll face it together." As they stood there, side by side, Cirrus felt a sense of peace settle over her. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew that she wasn't alone. And for the first time in her life, that was enough. The days after her conversation with the elders felt like an endless storm in Cirrus's mind. She had chosen a path, but it was one she could not walk alone. The tension in her heart grew with each passing day. Her people's disapproval weighed heavily on her, but Jack's presence brought her a sense of calm she had never known before. The battle between loyalty to her tribe and the bond she shared with Jack seemed impossible to win. It was early in the morning when Cirrus received the message. The messenger was a young warrior from her tribe, his face serious as he handed her a scroll. "The elders wish to speak with you again," he said before turning to leave. Cirrus's heart sank. She had known this moment would come, but she had hoped it would never arrive. The elders had already warned her of the consequences of her choices, but now they were calling her back for something more. She walked to the elders' chamber, her mind swirling. What more could they possibly say to her? She had made her decision. Jack was not a mistake, and the bond between them was something she could not deny. But her people didn't see it that way. To them, she was betraying the traditions that had guided their lives for generations, and they were not going to let her go without a fight. When she entered the chamber, the elders were waiting, their faces grim. The eldest elder, a tall man with silver hair, spoke first. "Cirrus," he began, his voice firm, "you have disrespected our ways, and you have ignored the warnings we gave you. We cannot allow you to continue this path." Cirrus stood tall, her heart beating fast. She was ready for this, ready to face whatever the elders had to say. "I have not disrespected you," she said, her voice steady. "I have followed my heart. Jack is not my enemy. He is someone who has shown me more than anyone else ever has." The elders exchanged looks, but no one spoke. The eldest elder sighed deeply. "This is not about Jack, Cirrus. This is about you, about your loyalty to your people. You have chosen to stand with a human warrior instead of your own kin. We cannot allow this. It is a betrayal." Cirrus's heart hurt at his words, but she did not flinch. "I am not betraying my people," she said quietly. "I am only choosing what is right for me. Jack has shown me a new way, a way of thinking, that I did not know was possible. I cannot turn my back on that. I will not." The elder's expression softened, but only slightly. "Then you leave us no choice. If you continue down this path, you will no longer be part of this tribe. You will be exiled." The words hit Cirrus like a blow. Exile. The one punishment her people reserved for the worst of traitors. But she didn't feel like a traitor. She felt as if she were finally seeing the world for what it truly was, without the blinders her tribe had placed on her. She had spent her entire life fighting for a cause she wasn't sure she even believed in anymore. But now, with Jack, she knew there was more. There was more to strength than just power. There was more to life than just following the rules. "I won't choose between my people and Jack," Cirrus said, her voice strong. "I will not let you force me into a decision like that. If you want me to leave, then I will go. But I will not turn my back on what I believe." The elders were silent for a long time. Cirrus stood there, her body tense, waiting for their response. Finally, the eldest elder spoke again, his voice softer this time. "Cirrus," he said, his tone changing, "we understand your feelings, but we must protect the traditions of our people. We cannot allow you to set a dangerous precedent." "I am not setting a precedent," Cirrus replied. "I am simply following my heart." The eldest elder sighed and shook his head. "I do not know what has happened to you, Cirrus. You were once the strongest among us, the one we looked to for leadership, but now you are choosing to follow a human. This is not the Cirrus we once knew." Cirrus felt a sharp pang in her chest, but she refused to let it show. She had been that Cirrus once, the one who followed every rule, who never questioned anything. But that person was gone. She had learned too much, seen too much, to ever be the same again. "I am still the same person," Cirrus said quietly, "but I am not the person you want me to be. I will not live my life for others. I will live for myself." The elder looked at her, his face full of sorrow. "Then you leave us no choice. You are exiled." Cirrus took a deep breath, her heart heavy, but her resolve stronger than ever. She had made her choice. She had chosen her path, and she would walk it with her head held high. "I accept your decision," she said, turning toward the door. Before she could leave, the elder spoke once more. "Cirrus, I hope one day you will understand the weight of this choice." Cirrus stopped in her tracks, but did not turn around. "I already understand," she said quietly, "and I hope that one day you will understand mine." With those final words, she left the chamber, her heart heavy but at peace with her decision. The tribe she had once called home was no longer her home. The people she had once fought with, were no longer the ones she would stand by. Her heart had chosen Jack, and with that choice came a new life. It would not be easy, but Cirrus was ready. As she walked back to the camp, she saw Jack waiting for her, his eyes full of concern. Without a word, he stepped toward her, offering her his hand. Cirrus took it, her fingers curling around his, feeling the warmth of his touch. "They said I have to leave," Cirrus said softly, her voice filled with emotion. "I've been exiled." Jack didn't say anything at first, but his expression softened. "Then you'll come with me," he said quietly. "We'll build a new future together, one where you don't have to choose between love and loyalty, a future where we make our own rules." Cirrus looked up at him, her heart filled with hope. This was her choice, her future, and she would walk it with him. "I will," she said, her voice steady. "I will." Together, they stood side by side, ready to face whatever challenges the future would bring. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, Cirrus felt sure of her place in the world. She had chosen her path, and with Jack by her side, she was ready to walk it.